Can we wait on 2 minutes, 2 more minutes, or Deepak?
Absolutely.
Kishore is there, sir. What Kishore is there? Can I make him in the panel? Prabhu bhai?
Yes.
Past chairman. I'm making him in a panel. Oh no, Rohit can make it. More Rohit.
Is Ashwini joining in?
Our past chairman can
may not join, then
the panel.
Mubin bhai ko upgrade karo.
Mubin bhai is there. Yeah. Rohit, can you help?
Yes, Deepak. Yes, Ravi.
Can you make him panelist?
Who, Ashwini or Mubin?
Mubin, Ashwini ji hai?
Ashwini is there? No.
Yeah, Ashwini. Yeah, she is there.
Awadh Kishore.
Awadh Kishore, right?
Yeah, Awadh Kishore.
Move to panelists. Yeah, done.
And Mubin Khan.
Mubin Khan, just 1 minute.
If our vice chairman joins, no one or past chairman joins, no, then we make them a panel. So that
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
No, Mubin is not there, Ravi.
Khan is not there. Okay, but he will join us shortly.
Yeah, no problem. Whenever he join, I will promote him. And yeah.
As Ashwini joined.
Okay. Okay. Let we start the event. Good morning, friends. Myself, Ravi Devra, CP Coordinator, Muscat Chapter, along with Rohit Agrawal, Rohitji, from the Kuwait Chapter CP Coordinator, will be the host for the event. Today's event is, we are talking about AI and machine learning, which is very important. We have our expert speaker, Mr. Arjun Bhadwa ji with us. And we have our guest, chief guest, Mr. Dayaniva Sharma ji, who is also in a very prominent in IT field, and he's also heading many various committees in the IT field. We will introduce him separately. We welcome you. We have Mr. Sondarajan, very expert person and very respectable person in Oman. So welcome you the event, and let's start the event by inviting Mr. Prabhu to have a welcome note. Mr. Prabhu. Mr. Prabhu. Mr. Prabhu.
Yes.
Prabhu bhai.
Yes. Thank you very much, Ravi ji. Good morning, one and all. Chief guest of the day, CA Dayaniva Sharma ji, Central Council member, ICAI, Professor Sundarajan, Director, ICMA, Speaker of the day, Mr. Arjun Bhadwa ji, CA Kaiser Shakir, Chairperson, Kuwait Chapter, invitees, guests from Central Bank of Oman, Ministry of Finance, State Audit Institution, CBFS, members of Kuwait Chapter, members of Muscat Chapter, and members of the MC members of the Kuwait Chapter and MC members of Muscat Chapter. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of ICA Muscat Chapter for our webinar on Rethink, Relearn, Reinvent, Artificial Intelligence, Machine Learning in Finance in this crisis time for finance professionals. Most of the organizations today are in constant state of flux as they respond to the fast-moving external business environment, be it a local economical or global economies, and technological advancement and disruption due to the COVID-19. The pandemic has devastated families and brought major economies to standstill. We believe a lasting change for the best possible. The appetite of automation has increased multifold. The key success factor of the business today is technological centric. More and more successful organizations are adopting the new technologies, Internet of Things, systems, smart systems, process automations, and survive in this COVID-19 crisis. The next normal, the recovery will be only digital. Let us hear from our learner speaker, Mr. Arjun Bhadwa ji. We look forward to your continued support and get connected with and engaged with the Muscat Chapter. Wish you all happy learning. Our special thanks to ICA Kuwait Chapter, joining hands with Muscat Chapter for this webinar. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you. Over to CA Kaiser Shakir, Chairperson of Kuwait Chapter, to address the members and guests. Thank you.
Thank you very much, CA Prabhu, Chairman Muscat Chapter, CA Sanil Varghese, Vice Chairman Muscat Chapter, and the Executive Committee of Muscat Chapter. A very good morning to all our distinguished guests, CA Dayanavas Sharmaji, CCM ICAI, Professor Sundarajan, Director ICMA, Speaker of the Day, Mr. Arjun Bhadwa ji, invitees, fellow members of Muscat Chapter and Kuwait Chapter. It is indeed a pleasure and honor to host this joint session with Muscat Chapter on this very interesting, important, and inexorable topic, which will surely hold the key to success of all, including us, the finance professionals, in days to come. Artificial intelligence is here and being rapidly commercialized, with new applications being created, not just for manufacturing, energy, healthcare, oil and gas, etc., but also for professionals in the field of finance, audit, risks, and compliance. And now, not wanting to dive deep into this, I would like to leave the topic for our experts to elaborate and enhance the knowledge on this. Whilst here, I would like to briefly touch upon an important milestone in the history of Kuwait Chapter. We are a chapter of over 500 plus registered members. ICI has graciously consented to our request to make Kuwait an examination center, and I am pleased to announce that we will endeavor to debut with November 2020 examination. Thank you, ICAI, and special thanks to Atulji, Prashantji, Gargji, and Prabdeepji for their support in this regard. And now, on behalf of Kuwait Chapter, I welcome you all once again, and I thank Muscat Chapter for this collaboration. May I now call upon CA Ashwini Savrikarji, or I think Raviji.
Let me take it, sir.
Right, Raviji, to formally introduce the chief guest.
Thank you. Now I request CA Sanil Varghese, our Vice Chairman, to introduce the chief guest. Welcome, Mr. Sanilji. 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 Sanilji is not there. Manishji, can you take it? Sanilji, can you? You are not audible, Sanilji.
Raviji, I think you carry on, please.
You carry on.
Yeah, there is a problem with his audio, I think.
Technical, I think there is some technical.
Let me talk to him. Okay, no issues. I'll take carry on. Welcome, sir. Dayanavas is a Central Council member, as I said. He is also chairman of the Peer Review Board. He is also a member of Quality Review Board. He is also convener of the members and student services directorates in SSP. He is also vice chairman of Digital Accounting and Assurance Board, DAB. And he is also a board member of XBRL India, members of UDIN, the Directorates and Digital Transformation Process Reengineering Groups, chairman of the Center for Excellence, COE, Hyderabad, member of multiple central committees. Then as is qualified in 2005 and with the PwC articleships, and he has been conveyed as Coffee Table Book and recognized as Young India Visionary by IMG Innovative Media Group in whole of the UAE. And at the ACI National and International Forums, he took sessions and seminars on 23 plus topics. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
Welcome, Dayanavas Sharmaji.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Raviji.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Now, Mr. Rohit, can you take? Mr. Rohit.
Ravi. Yes,
Yeah.
Ravi.
Yeah, next is the introduction to the Mr. Sundarajan.
Yeah, Umesh, can you please introduce Mr. Professor Sir?
Yeah. Hi, good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome guest of honor, Mr. Sundara Rajam, who is a professor and he holds a degree in mathematics and law and is a fellow member of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India with expertise in unique combination of fields like mathematics, statistics, law, accounting, and management. He has been having over 4 decades of rich and varied experience in consulting, advisory, training in the field of finance and business management. Uh, he is in Oman since January 2009 and is presently a director of Institute of Cost Management Accountants, Oman. Professor Sir has been, he has major areas of interest in IFRS, performance measurement, management, family business mentoring, coaching, and corporate governance. Since 2009, he has designed and delivered about 100 executive education programs in the Gulf region to the participant over 200 companies on various topics of corporate governance, financial statement analysis, US GAAP, IFRS, EVA, balance scorecard, etc. Prior to 2009, he was a professor in the IIM Bangalore for 18 years. He was the recipient of Best Professor Awards from the students at IIM Bangalore. Before joining IIM Bangalore, he was with XLRI Jamshedpur for a year, a consultant for 16 years, and was in service with a bank and mining company for 4 years. I would like to welcome Professor on behalf of the ICA Kuwait chapter, and thank you for your time in attending this webinar.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Very nice of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I request our chairman. Now I request our chief guest, Mr. Dayanivasi, to say some few words. Dayanivasi, you can start.
Thank you, Raviji. First of all, let me wish Kaiser for taking a bigger responsibility as a chairman of the chapter to conduct examination of ICAI. Kaiserji, one thing I would like to say, it is a bigger responsibility, I'm telling you, and one thing which we all have to appreciate, all these 72 years, 73 years of our existence, the examination has only been one of the strongest pillar of our institute. It is actually the backbone of our system. And there is a lot responsibility going to come on you to conduct those examinations. And a lot of students, future is going to be in your hands. Ensure that everything is being taken care well. First of all, big compliments to you that you could make it. Having 500 plus members is something very good. But before that, equally, I really take on record the efforts which are being put by our leadership, Sri Atul Kumar Gupta ji, our president, beloved president of the institute, who is so big visionary in the entire thought process. When May examination got postponed, he was the person who got highest hurt in the frame of mind. And then within no time, within a 1 month time, the examination centers doubled only to ensure that the COVID compliance has been rightly being done. And now we are actually going to take up the examinations very effectively, followed with Niharji, who is our vice president, amazing personality, a person with practice and industry background. His vision has been always a great support, and undoubtedly I'll be missing if I don't compliment our immediate past president, Praful Chhajarji, who's actually been the person behind thinking how digital we can go, how quick we can go. And last year, the entire digital process of our institute actually initiated. I'm fortunate to be part of that entire activity where 5 crore data was being migrated. And today we are almost close to 85-90% success rate pe hum log. So this is something which is very big. And followed with, after complimenting them, Ramanand sir, you have always been a great host. Thank you very much for inviting me. And it's very interesting to see, Muscat and Kuwait chapter coming together and making a big blow, and it's going to be something good. I think this unfortunate time of COVID, actually it made us all come together very easily. So I think when you talk about certain things negative, there is a lot which is positive attached to it. And I think chartered accountants over a period of time, and thankfully Sundarajan sir is there, and those all people have contributed to this profession, that we stood strong all throughout, even during the toughest times. So these all senior people have given us that vision, that legacy. I'll not say history, because it is continuing and it will continue going forward also. 70 years we have been existent, and now technology adoption is something which we are doing very fast and very quick. And more importantly, Raviji, thank you very much for coordinating and ensuring that I am here, and giving me an opportunity to be part of your entire, Muscat and Kuwait chapter event. When you share a dais with a learned person like Sundar Rajanji, it actually gives an immense pleasure and a day to remember and be memorable, that, a learned person like him, who is actually, we thought about mathematics means, I am a mathematics student, but I can understand if he is a teacher, how effective he can be. And a person who is contributed all throughout, and he is continuing to contribute all throughout, is also a biggest satisfaction. Sundarajan sir, please accept my namaskar to you. And it's a teacher's blessing is always the top when you look at.
Thank you very much. It's your goodness. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Arjun, you have actually, confused me by seeing your photograph and looking at you, two different people. I was just thinking, or might be Prabhuji and Kaiser might have managed with that Arjun who's lost. I don't know where he is. So we got one more person and made him sit. But I've seen your profile. It was fantastic. And I think you will justify your being there. It's going to be immense learning. I'll try to be there for at least, I'll switch off my screen and I'll try to work from my office. But yes, undoubtedly a person like you who's gone through this kind of changes, amazing profile it was. I don't want to read it again. And really, it's going to be interesting. And more importantly, the entire managing committee of Kuwait as well as Muscat chapter to come together and make it happen. An interesting topic, very interesting topic. I actually laugh at artificial intelligence. Whenever a person talks about artificial intelligence, I always laugh and say, the artificial intelligence is also created by human only. I think you all will agree. So it's not different. So what we fed into the system, that is what it is doing. It cannot be faster than the human mind. But yes, Sundarajan sir will agree. The mathematics and the statistical data which a computer can compute fast, human mind takes little time, because we are preoccupied with many things, and computer does only what is required to be done. But we have many things which we need to really look into and understand from. Artificial intelligence undoubtedly is taking a total different face in the national and international scenario. And today I'm proud Indian who can say that, in 2013-14, India was at 150th position on usage of data. And to 2017, we touched #1, and we continue to be the world's #1 with regards to usage of data and systems and technology. So this is where digital India is moving towards. And I think I'll tell you one simple example. We have done a very close, now 16th of September, we are coming out with a study paper, research paper with ICAEW and ICAI. When ICAEW came to us and asked, we would like to do a robotic process automation study with you guys, we were shocked. And we said, you are from London and you say this. Then they said, your country actually has adopted RPA much faster than anyone in the world. And just wait for that announcement to come, where we are going to release a joint research paper, which is going to be a big project of ICI going forward. Friends, with this, a lot of things are being done by ICI. I would, come separately and talk about it. And thankfully, the leadership of Atul Gupta ji is actually ensuring that we all are totally digital and we are going to a next level. But again, when I come back to my artificial intelligence and machine learning, that gives me a real funny instances. I'll just tell you one simple example. How machine learning, artificial intelligence is being used. Today, when you talk about, just you want to search something and automatically multiple, things come on your Google. And whenever you are opening your Google, again, those things, like if you have searched for a mobile phone or a pen or might be a jacket or something like that, automatically it comes. That is showing your interest. That's basically a language which has been drawn in a particular manner. I'll tell you one funniest thing. A friend of mine actually met with a bad accident just outside the mall. Okay. And quickly, he's actually bleeding all throughout, and his phone rings and he says, "Sir, I'm calling from, Van Heusen store, which is just adjacent to where you are. And we are actually having a 50% off." So just imagine how unintelligent it is, because human touch cannot actually change. Human would have first come and asked this person, "Are you have fallen down? You are bleeding? Let me help you out." But the artificial intelligence, the message goes to a person saying that you are around this mall and this mall has this kind of discount which is available. So just see how these things are actually changing. But yes, the fact is it is moving very fast. Whether you talk about marketing strategies, whether you talk about production strategies, whether you talk about doing any statistical or data analytical things, all these are becoming very, very, very prominent. But at the end of the day, it is artificial. Ultimately, a decision making is of a human only, because you and I can understand that a human tendency is going to be, giving you a lot of other, human touch. And that is how the things are going to move forward. I can start continuing and talk on this particular topic, might be 2 to 3 hours together. But I would leave it to the wisdom of our, speaker who's come. And, but the only thing, Arjun, I would like you to touch upon one aspect, which is the most important, is the ethical behavior of using AI and ML. I think that is something which we all have to understand. Ethics cannot be taught. Ethics cannot be tasted. I was just telling someone, if you can define taste of water, then you can really define taste of, definition of ethics. So when you cannot describe what is the taste of water, you cannot actually define what it is. And ethics, whether you are bombarded with so many messages because of using of artificial intelligence, you can't even imagine the kind of data which is coming around you. But yes, the fact goes very simple, whether it is corporate, whether it is individual, or whether now it is government. Government is using this artificial intelligence so effectively that, when you walk into the airport, all your statistical data is actually captured from somewhere. And the data is available before that, custom officer, when he wants to evaluate a person as such. So lot we can discuss about. I am seeing Arjun smiling at me. I think I am making some nonsense statements. So,
no, sir.
So, but the fact is, like, we cannot, miss out. Artificial intelligence and machine learning is going to be the future of this profession also. And lot of manual activities are just going to cut down drastically. And it is going to change the entire landscape of this profession. If we are not going to change, you may be a finance officer, you may be a CFO, you may be a chartered accountant who is in practice or CPA in practice. The fact goes very simple. The data is going to be the most crucial thing. Earlier, capturing data across the globe was humanly not possible. But now, all these governments have the entire intelligence system sitting in their central server, which is pulling out all data, where you have traveled, how much you have traveled, what you have purchased, how much you have purchased, which credit card you have used, what kind of expenditure pattern you are following. All this thing is being done by no other thing than the artificial intelligence and machine learning programming languages, which are actually being inbuilt. And trust me, the only thing which I would like to say is we are a central point and everything is revolving around us. And this is, you cannot, I cannot, no one can actually miss out to have the basic knowledge of artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotic process automation. Blockchain is going to be redefining. We heard the concept of single entry accounting. We moved to double entry. Because of blockchain, we are going to get into a triple entry accounting system, which is going to be one of the most unique reforms which is going to be seen by this accounting profession. So friends, thank you very much. I would not like to take much time. I would, I hope I could, give you some kind of input which gives you, keeps your mind, engaged. to ensure what Arjun is going to speak about and how is he going to take us through the entire process. And learning should never stop. Every day there is new thing which is coming, and every day you have to be relevant. We were relevant yesterday. We were relevant years back. We are relevant today. And to be relevant tomorrow, you have to be on your toes to ensure that this all new learning mechanism, you do it. One of the most important part, finally, I would like to say is on the Digital Learning Hub, we have got a fantastic, 2 hours learning program with regards to robotic process automation, which is one of the best ones I can say in the world. And now we are going to come out with, artificial intelligence and machine learning, e-learning platform, Digital Learning Hub. Just wait for some more days. We are coming out with a lot of new things happening. And also one important aspect, which I don't want to miss again, in the Digital Accounting and Assurance Board, we are the board which is actually training people on DISA, which is Information Systems Audit. And the beauty is we are coming out, we have floated and everything is in line, where we are going to get certified as ANSI. That means you will be globally recognized equivalent to CISA or similar kind of, degrees across. And we have come out with a forensic, training from L1 to L5, which I'll come sometime and talk. We have imbibed the forensic learning at the article level. Just imagine, that is called L1. And L5 is the most advanced one. And you all will be happy that there is a group which has been formed under the chairmanship of Mr. Manu Agarwal, who's my chairman, and I'm the vice chairman of that. We are working on getting the world's best forensic standards. So be ready, be prepared, hopefully put our fingers crossed, pray every time whenever you are doing your prayers that, your institute stands tall before anyone, everyone, and everyone should feel proud about it. And we are making it, doing it. And most important part is you all international chapters are actually keeping us really feel, it's a great pleasure to see you all people participating in such large manner and encouraging that, the new learning continues. Please continue doing it. My best wishes with you all people. At any given point in time, you require any kind of support. At ICI, New Delhi, we all are available, and we'll ensure that your word doesn't go down at any given point in time. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity. Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daya sir. Now I would like to invite Professor Sundarajan to address the attendees. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Muscat chapter, for giving me this opportunity. In simple terms, AI and machine learning is discerning a pattern from the past data and giving a prediction about the future. As accounting and finance professionals, we are so much concerned about future. Even in the auditing profession, where we do the records, audit the records of the past, when it comes to, let us take going concern, we have to look at the future. So our job is predicting the future, and artificial intelligence and machine learning will help us in a very big way. In the year 1968, one Edward Altman came up with the Z-score. What is that? It's an equation with 5 independent variables, which are nothing but simple accounting ratios with some coefficients. And he came up with one Z-score and said that this Z-score will predict the chance of bankruptcy within the next 2 years of any entity. What is the chance this entity can become bankrupt in the next 2 years? That means he gave a risk model in 1968. For a very long time, this Altman's Z-score was used in variety of ways. Now, artificial intelligence and machine learning is able to grapple with data which is non-linear by using what they call artificial neural network. We have a neural network in our brain, but artificial intelligence has got the artificial neural network, and it gives some fantastic predictions. Whether it is very simple thing like expected credit loss model under IFRS 9 now. So, hello, am I audible?
Yes, yes, yes. Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
Professor,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. So the expected credit loss model or anything like that, anything about the future, and we chartered accountants, finance professionals, we are only interested in looking at the past data and saying something about the future. From that point of view, I am very sure that we will all benefit by hooking into this artificial intelligence and machine learning, deep learning, etc. Just one word. As I said, I passed my CA in 1970, and I should be just retired and relaxing. But if the subject like artificial intelligence and machine learning excites this aged brain into getting a little more, so you all should be definitely very much keen to get into this. All the best for you. With this, I shut up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Sundarajan, for your continuous support for the Muscat chapter. And I also mentioned one more thing, Dr. Dayaniva Sharmaji. Professor Sundarajan, whenever there is a requirement, and College of Banking and Financial Studies, our sponsor, they are running a training program. He is our professor, and he will be unconditionally support us for all the activities whenever the requests come from CBFS. He has been unconditionally, and he has not even taken any honorarium, and he has even waived off the honorarium as a gesture of for the institute and for the mother alma mater. Thank you very much, Professor Sundarajan. And we also have Awadh Kishorji, our past chairperson. He is also serving our sponsors, CBFS, whenever there is a requirement for the training opportunities for their as a on an honorarium basis. And we also have welcome Mubinji, our past chairperson. And we also have CA Noel Chirian, past chairperson of Kuwait chapter, and CA Prashant Chetty, also past chairperson of Kuwait chapter. Welcome to you. Over to you, Raviji.
Thank you, sir. Now we will be introducing our speaker, guest speaker. Everybody is waiting for that. So we'll welcome our guest speaker. Mr. Manish Jain will be introducing, Mr. Manish Jain will be introducing Mr. Arjun Bhadwa, and we will be giving him virtual flower of bouquet. Mr. Manish.
Thank you, Ravi. Morning,
that we have Astaji also there, our past chairperson of Muscat chapter. Welcome, Astaji, to the program. Over to you, Manish bhai.
Thank you, Ravi bhai, and thank you, Prabhuji. Indeed, this is a pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Mr. Arjun Bhadwa. He is working as Chief Financial Officer for CL Educate Limited, a company listed at NSE and BSE in India. He holds degrees of Bachelor's of Science from Delhi University and MBA from Management Development Institute. Arjun is a finance professional with the technological and entrepreneur experience of over 20 years, especially in education, sports, and journalism industries. He is working with his company's corporate clients on using the latest Industry 4.0 skills, including artificial intelligence, machine learning, and cloud computing to solve business and financial problems. Arjun has launched his first venture, the sportscampus.com, a global sports portal. He also founded Goals for Souls, a content development company which offered solutions such as website contents, copyright, paraphrasing, and creative writing. He was a regular columnist for India's leading environmental magazine called Terra Green. With this brief introduction, I would like Mr. Arjun to take over his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Manish ji, for that wonderful introduction. I'd also like to, especially thank Ramanand ji for your kind invitation today. Ravi ji for coordinating everything so beautifully and making sure everything was so well organized. Kaiser ji, special congratulations to you and to the Kuwait chapter for that fantastic achievement. May you continue to grow and blossom. And, to Dayanivas ji, thank you so much for your introduction to AIML and for your kind words. The Institute continues to be at our heart and continues to be an inspiration to all of us going forward. I'll try and take off from where you left off and also address some of the specific areas that you raised, especially that of ethical behavior and where humans start and machines fail. So I will look to address that as well, though there is a lot that we can also learn from machines. So it's an opportunity. This is a field where we are always learning. And the speed at which advancements happen in this domain, it's absolutely incredible. So if you haven't read what happened yesterday, you're already out of date. And this could not be more relevant for today's finance professionals, especially given the uncertain times that we work in. I will move to my presentation. I've built it to last anywhere between 1 hour to 2 hours, depending on how the participants find it. As Dayanivas ji said, this is a topic that we could probably speak about for 3-4 hours and forget that we need to even have meals like lunch and dinner. It's so exciting. It's so cutting edge, and it's also so relevant and useful. So without further ado, I'll move on to my session. I would just request one thing before we start. If we could get the blessings of Professor Sundarajan, we will kick off the session.
Thank you very much. God bless you. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Is the presentation visible to all?
Yes, Mr. Arjun.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to minimize my monitor so that I see the presentation on the screen rather than the faces of my learned colleagues with me. But if at any point in time anyone has a question, please feel free to raise your hand. I will either address it immediately if it is in line with the current context of our conversation, or I will take it up later towards the end of the session.
Questions coming in the question association, sir.
Yeah, sure. So as Dayanivas ji said, AI/ML is a fantastic area, and he's already introduced the topic to you briefly by talking about his Van Heusen example. I will spend a little bit more time in terms of my session as I walk you through certain learning objectives that I've defined for this session. First, I'll give you a little bit of a background on artificial intelligence and machine learning so that we can relate it to real world examples. Then I will dive technically into some of the core aspects of what is the technological side of artificial intelligence and machine learning. Please note that my idea is not to bore you by teaching you computer science or by giving you an indication of what is the learning there. My idea is just to introduce you to how simple and how simple yet how advanced it is, so that you can appreciate the area in a little bit more detail, so that next time you're having a conversation on artificial intelligence and machine learning with people in your organization, or you're evaluating such options for your own organizations, you can do so with an understanding of what is happening in the session, because you've got an introduction to what are the technical terms around it. Then I will look at specifically examples in finance and accounting where artificial intelligence is already being used. And if you're not aware of this, there's always the risk that you are running behind. So just to give you an idea where people are already using it, where they have been using it for years, but we have potentially been blissfully unaware of that, and what are the areas where the future lies in terms of where is this field going to move in the next 2 to 3 years. So just a little bit of background. I want to introduce the topic to you. Artificial intelligence is a very vast field, and what it really involves is the ability of machines to perform functions that are similar to the human mind. This includes things like perceiving, learning, and problem solving. And I will delve into each of these in more detail as we go on in the session. Machine learning, in contrast, is a subset of artificial intelligence. So when people speak about artificial intelligence and machine learning, they tend to generally speak about it as one area. The reality could not be further from the truth. Machine learning is just one very, very significant, but just one part of artificial intelligence, where it refers to our ability to train machines to improve their performance by giving them exposure to data. So the difference between machine learning and artificial intelligence here is that artificial intelligence gives machines the ability to take decisions. Machine learning does not always go along that pattern. And then there's a third segment to it, which is deep learning, which is a specific type of machine learning which builds parameters about data and trains computers to learn on its own by recognizing patterns, using multiple layers of processing, etc. So, when people talk about artificial intelligence in general, it's very important to remember that it happens in multiple ways and forms. There are different parts of it, and not all of it gets executed in exactly the same manner. And I will take this up with further examples as we go on deeper into the session. But what is important for you to take away from this particular slide is that deep learning, the focus is on training the computer to learn on its own. Artificial intelligence in a broad spectrum just can look at everything. But when you get into the depth of things and you do deep learning, the computer actually has the skill to not just learn on its own, but to continue training itself to think on its own and to take actions also on its own. So, and I'll take this up with simple examples later on, but the idea here is it's not just about putting an input and getting an output. In machine learning, and especially in deep learning, that output goes back into your input and trains the computer, okay, this is the decision I took last time. What improvements should I make to take a better decision next time? Let me take an example of loans here. Suppose you've given a loan to someone whose salary was 100 rupees. And I'll take examples in rupees or dollars. Please feel free to replace with any currency. Suppose you've given a loan to someone with $100 and 9 out of 10 people who've taken loans at $100 repay that loan. That information gets fed back into the system so that next time when that decision is taken, it is taken with more information, more knowledge, and then you can decide whether you should continue giving loans to such people or not. And the computer is able to take that decision without human intervention. That is an example of deep learning. I'll move forward. These are some terms that people will throw at you when you start picking up this topic of artificial intelligence and machine learning. Of these, I'm just going to touch upon a few. And just focus on you learning 3 terms from this slide. One is supervised classification. The outcome of supervised learning is a descriptive outcome. What happened? Okay, so this is of a form where the machine is not told to work completely on its own. It is completely supervised. And the outcome of it is, tell me what happened. I'll take this last example here on my slide. Detect fraudulent activity in a credit card. So you put in data into the machine. It runs all these fancy algorithms. if you've studied maths and stats, you might be familiar with. You don't need to know any of these. This is just to give you an idea of what happens under the covers or behind the scenes. But in supervised learning, what happens is a descriptive outcome. It will tell you fraud hua ki nahi hua. Has fraud happened on that credit card or not happened? So supervised learning is of a descriptive form. Unsupervised learning is when we don't know the classification of data and we want the algorithm itself to tell us what should happen. So a predictive algorithm will be the type which tells us, will fraud happen or not in this kind of a scenario? And reinforced learning is when we don't have training data and the only way to learn is by letting the machine learn on its own by experiencing things. So, you know, some common examples of these are self-driving cars. There is no data to feed into the system in terms of how self-driving cars behave. So the machine has to learn on its own how this sort of driving is to be done. And I'll take more examples as we move forward, but just to give you an introduction to terms so that you have a knowledge when we go forward in the session. When I talk about supervised learning, the objective is to describe what happened. When I talk about unsupervised learning, the objective is to describe what will happen. And when I talk about reinforced learning, the idea is to be prescriptive. What should you do now? Not what happened, not what will happen. What should be the action that should be taken? For example, in a car, should you turn right? Should you brake? Should you turn left? Or should you switch the car off and sit on the side? These are examples of prescriptive. Predictive is what will happen. And descriptive is what had happened. So these are some common examples. You know, it's very easy to think of artificial intelligence and machine learning as pata nahi kuch robot hai, kya karta hai, you know, it's from some other dimension. We are talking about things that are inconceivable. It's not really true. If you've used Google Maps, you are using artificial intelligence for navigation. If you've used an Alexa app, or you've used anything like Siri or anything like that, you're using artificial intelligence for voice control. If you've used autofill in Excel, you know, where you enter the letter J और ऊपर list, क्योंकि ऊपर list में J है, वो next item आ जाता है, the next item gets auto-filled. That is an example of machine learning. That the machine has learned to pick up data that was already there and is continuing to fill cells based on it. So none of this stuff is radically new. When you open up your YouTube videos and it gives you a list of recommended videos, this is nothing but artificial intelligence and machine learning at work. So none of these things are new. You've seen them. They've existed in your everyday life. These are not terms that you should be scared of or worried about. They exist in the world that you currently operate in. What we will cover during the course of this session is how do they exist in the financial world and what is your exposure been to these as a finance professional. These are some of business examples of machine learning. And I'll start with an example on sports. You get these, you know, sports, you get these messages on your mobile phone. This is a sports result, or this is the outcome of so-and-so match, or you get information news alerts. All the news alerts that you get on your phone are all examples of machine learning. And how is the machine learned? It has learned by understanding your behavior in terms of what is it that you like, and it keeps feeding you information based on that. And then it asks you these subtle questions like, was this useful for you? And if you say yes, it will continue showing you more information like that. That is where the machine is learning by itself. It is training itself. There is no human being at the back end who looks and sees, okay, Arjun said he likes to read business news, let me give him more business news. No, it is the machine which is learning on its own that so-and-so news alert came. This news alert was found useful. It was read by Arjun. He spent 30 minutes, he spent 3 minutes reading this news alert. Let me give him more information like this. If they see you swipe over it and you say, you do not read that news alert, next time the machine will learn that these news alerts are not something that you will find interesting, and it will give you a different type of news alert. These are all examples of machine learning that you see in your day-to-day life. See this interesting example from my previous line of work. See, when I was in journalism, we had a team of 150 journalists who used to work with me, whose job was to go out, visit live sports events, and write match reports, and come back and publish their match reports. This entire match report that you read here has been written by a machine. Not one word of it was written by a human being. That is the power of machine learning. That is the power of artificial intelligence. By picking up keywords that it has learned from observing, from understanding, from interpreting data, it is able to generate a full report on what happened in this is a baseball match. It can do the same for football, cricket, and so on. That's the way machines learn now. If you look at journalism websites now, they use machine learning and have less reporters. Auto-written news reports. That is where the world has moved to. That is how organizations in the journalism space are managing their costs more efficiently. I'm going to give you some examples of this in the financial space. It's being used across the board. This article you read here on the right hand side, international growth outperforms the MSCI EAFE, written by a machine. This alert on suspicious activity generated by a machine. AP is the Associated Press. In as early as 2014, they started using algorithms to produce earnings reports. So things like automated portfolio commentary, activity reports, intelligent automation, all of these are already being used by banks, by investment managers, by insurance companies, by people across the financial spectrum to manage their costs more efficiently and to get better quality outputs. Now, obviously, the one question that you would ask naturally here is, okay, if a machine is doing all this, what is the actual quality of it? Surely a machine cannot think like a human and produce the quality of a human when it comes to these sort of results. The answer is not only can they think like a human, they can even sense sentiments. Machines have moved to a stage that they can predict behavior. Take a look at this example. There is this artificial intelligence tool called AlphaSense. It spots sentiment shifts before a stock price moves. This report was published about this company, which was a furniture company. Their chairman released a press release, are disappointing earnings in the first quarter, etc., etc. Based on this, the sentiment trend was generated before the stock date is June 12th. Traders that beware. There is a sentiment change that is coming. And sure enough, if you look at this data on July, the dip has already started. This sentiment change is something about analysis of data based on pure intelligence of machines. And don't underestimate these machines. Artificial intelligence machines have beaten human beings at games like chess, checkers, Go, backgammon. They've beaten. There's a game show called Jeopardy, which is a more advanced version of Kaun Banega Crorepati. IBM Watson, which is the artificial intelligence tool that IBM has developed, beat the two greatest champions of this show in a test of knowledge and thinking. That is the ability of machines. And these machines are not just based on knowledge. This test was not a knowledge test. It wasn't who's the Prime Minister of India. These were questions which required the ability to read human expression. Now, can you imagine if you're doing a fraud assessment and you have to interview the chairman, the CFO, and the vice president finance of a company, and you have to check whether a fraud or embezzlement or something untoward has happened in that organization as part of an audit. A machine has the ability to do that today. That is the world that we are living in, and it's important we know that. IBM Watson, it has information which is of 200 million pages. Every single article on Wikipedia exists in IBM Watson. Every single book ever written, every single movie ever made, every single item of any kind of behavior, including emotions, are a part of IBM Watson. That is the advancement to which machines have reached at this stage. And when I look at, the advancements in terms of the ability to read human behavior, an artificial intelligence tool correctly predicted the outcome of cases of a human rights perspective using NLP, which Professor Sundarajan was talking about earlier. Can you imagine the impact that this could have to our legal systems if, in addition to a judge, we have an artificial intelligence tool available to them to be able to take decisions? It could decide the outcomes of cases at an incredibly fast pace. Across countries, the future of artificial intelligence, and that future is now. It's not tomorrow. It's not yesterday. It's today. This is happening in the world today. Let me give you an example in healthcare. Doctors are very similar to a machine learning algorithm because doctors do a lot of reading. They study a lot of information. They do a 9-year course to become a doctor. They are like a warehouse of all this information. Now imagine putting all the knowledge of all the doctors in the world and all the journals in the world into one machine. Imagine the quality of data it will throw out in terms of the ability to treat people. When this exercise was done, purely from a test pilot perspective, in the US, we found a 99% accuracy rate in diagnosis. And it saved 50% of the patients from going through a invasive procedure. Basically, unka operation bach gaya. That was the quality of the outcome of putting all this information into an artificial intelligence system. Medicine, as you know it, as a profession, will change radically as a result of artificial intelligence. Let me give you the example of this pharmacy. When you go to a chemist and you order and you get your medicine, on the right hand side you see this photo of the CNN report. This is of a complete robotic pharmacy, completely run through robot process automation, run by robots. You put in your information, you get your prescription. 99% success rate. We're talking about an area where if you get it wrong, there's a risk of human life. And we've managed to automate it to an extent where, it can give a 99% success rate. And this is, just the beginning. If I break up artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities into two segments, how it helps on the medicinal side, and then there's this bottom half which shows how it helps on the operational side. Imagine if you would have to employ 400 doctors to run a massive clinic. Suddenly, if you add an artificial intelligence tool, your number of doctors would reduce, your number of hours would reduce, your patient throughput would become radically better, your number of staffs would reduce, your management of your costs would change radically. That is the potential that artificial intelligence brings into this domain. Now, one question that I'm typically asked is, okay, so if all of this was there 4 or 5 years ago, and Google Maps was also there, YouTube was also there, Amazon was also there, why is there so much noise about artificial intelligence today when all of this already exists and when all of this is already being done? The answer is very simple. The cost of storing data is what has changed radically. In the last 30 to 40 years, the ability to store data has come down by the cost of storing data has come down by such a large amount. Just look at these figures. It used to cost $500,000 per gigabyte to store data back in 1980. That cost is now down to 2 cents, which is peanuts, which is why today the world is moving towards artificial intelligence, because you can store all that data. Number one. Number two, the computing power. Earlier on, everyone used to talk about, wow, that's a Pentium. Now no one talks about Pentium. Now people talk about i5 and i7 and i9. That's the computing power that exists in basic machines. Can you imagine the computing power that exists in supercomputers? That is why there's an explosion in artificial intelligence today. One, now we have the ability to store data at a cost-effective rate. Two, we have the computing power to be able to analyze that data. And number three, obviously the quantum of data is growing at a radical rate. Earlier on, as Dayanivas ji said, when you go to go through your customs, the customs officer will look at you, look at your passport, ask you 2 questions and say, "Kahan ja rahe ho? Chutti pe ja rahe ho? Kyun ja rahe ho? Kab wapis aoge?" etc. That was the amount of data that he had to work. It was what was printed in your physical passport in front of him. Now he has all your data, your life history, your entire everything available at the click of a button, because he's working on an intelligent system which is feeding him all the information. So even before you get into that line, he can actually say whether you can go through or not. And which is why in some countries, you will see that visa processing or passing through happens through gates which are completely automated, where they do not need to have a particular agent sitting there. That is going to be the impact of artificial intelligence. When the machine can read your passport, read your face, do facial recognition and confirm, yes, this is Arjun, read your passport and confirm, yes, there are no red flags on his system, and it will let you go. That is the future. And it's not very far away. And just to give you an example in terms of data, today, in one single day, we generate 2.5 exabytes of data. 1 exabyte is 1 million terabytes. We are used to talking in kilobytes, then megabytes, then gigabytes, then there's terabytes, then there's exabytes. 1 exabyte is 1 million terabytes. Today, as human beings, we generate 2.5 million exabytes per day. That is enough. That just to give you an idea, that is equivalent to the amount of data that is stored in 5 million laptops. That is the quantum of data that is being generated about you and me every day. Every time we log into Facebook, data is being generated about us and stored in a system. Every time we log into LinkedIn, data is being stored. Every time we do a Google search, data is being stored about us. And the amount of data that is being stored about all the human beings in the planet is 2.5 exabytes per day, equivalent to 5 million laptops of data being stored daily. Can you imagine the quantum of data we're dealing with? And what does all of this mean? It means that when you go into Amazon and order a book, next time it will tell you, all right, now, sorry, it's telling you, alongside the book that you have chosen, other people have bought these books. So you should also buy it. That is artificial intelligence and machine learning at work from a marketing standpoint. And I was really excited about sharing this slide in the context of that I'm speaking to you in Oman and Kuwait today. Data is the new oil. That is, information is power. Data is going to be the raw material that drives every business from here on. Facebook's valuation was $100 per profile. That is the value of data. Today's most valuable companies, Microsoft, Facebook, Google, Amazon, all of these, why are they valuable? Because they generate data. And what does that data translate into? In Amazon's case, through the example I just shared you, it translates into more sales. In Facebook's, every time you come, you see more ads, it translates into more revenue. Similarly for Google, similarly for Microsoft. Data is going to be the new currency of this world. That is where this world is headed. And there are these businesses that are just exist because of the amount of data they possess. In Netflix, 70% of choices are based on recommendations. People don't go and search for movies. The tab that comes, recommended viewing for you because you watched so-and-so movie, that is artificial intelligence and machine learning at work. And how does this affect businesses? Amazon uses the data it generates to predict human behavior and minimizes travel time from their warehouses to you. Imagine if Amazon did not know anything about you and it did not know your purchase behavior. Imagine if it had to get something to you from another country to deliver it to you. The amount of time it would take. Would you wait 20 days for your grocery delivery, or would you wait 10 days for anything to get delivered? No. The reason Amazon Prime works with free delivery almost next day or one day later is because they are anticipating requirements of people in a particular region and proactively placing them in their delivery hubs even before they are ordered. And 30% of their sales is based on these. It's ridiculous. The amount of data that Amazon sits on and uses to, but they're not people sitting there and taking these decisions. It's the artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms that have been written that are predicting these outcomes. Otherwise, just imagine, just to take these decisions, they would have needed 1 million people just to sit and work at Amazon. So that was part one of my presentation, just to give you a little bit of background. Now I'm going to go a little bit more technical and then I'll follow it up with a quick session on practical applications in the finance field. If at any point in time you are finding this part of the session too technical, please tell me. I will skip some of those slides and move further on to the practical side of it. I'm just going to pause for a second and just take a quick dipstick survey in terms of how things are proceeding so far. If you are following what I'm saying and if the flow is going as per that you're understanding where I'm coming from so far. Rohit, could you please help me with a quick poll?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Rohit, if you could just poll the participants and just check if they'd like me to go slower or faster. If they are following me so far, since I can't see faces, I can't tell whether what is the level of responsiveness at the other end.
Yeah, the members cannot speak, sir, because we cannot.
Yes. Okay. So I just request in chat if you could just leave your feedback.
I'll message.
Okay,
I'll message
okay.
all in the.
Yeah. Thank you. Sure. I'll move ahead there. If you're fine, so that it makes sense to everyone.
So it's going fine.
Okay, there's a message from Deepak. How about using AI to judge the audience response? Right. Yeah. Thank you, Deepak. I'll keep that in mind.
There are two, three questions are there in the question bank.
I'll take a look at them as well towards the end. It's as part of the Q&A. Okay, I'm just going to put this slide available to you. Now, traditionally, when technology used to operate, there was data, an algorithm used to be written, and an output used to come. So very simply, input comes in, some magical work happens on it behind the scenes, and an outcome comes. The way machine learning works is you input past data, and you also input past result. Then the machine learning works, and it gives you an algorithm. Based on that algorithm, then you get a new result. And it's important to understand the difference between A and B here. Give an input and you would take an output. There was no concept of a machine training itself. The way machine learning works now is you give it the input of historical data, you also give it the historical result. Based on that, the machine will write the algorithm. Comes from the human being. Algorithm is written by the human being. Result comes. New process of machine learning. Enter, give me my old data. All the CAs from 1970 to 2000, what was their success rate? I enter that. The machine learning thing creates the algorithm. And that algorithm is then used to analyze fresh data. And I'll take this up with an example soon. This algorithm is then fed new data. So what is it? If based on my past data, if 5 lakh CAs, 5 lakh aspirants took the chartered accountancy exam and 40,000 of them cleared it, it will create an algorithm to judge if 2 lakh CAs take my next set of exams over the next 2 years, how many will pass it? I know that's a very simplistic example, but just to give you an understanding of where I'm coming from. Earlier on, we used to write that algorithm also. Now the machine will write the algorithm and use that to derive information. Okay. Now, this is where things get the algorithm anymore, which means that as a technology person, you actually don't need to know technology. You don't need to be a coder. You don't need to know C++. You don't need to know Java. What you need to know is you need to know your data. You need to know your industry, and you need to know what are the right questions to ask. If you know the right questions to ask, the computer is intelligent enough to create the algorithm for you. It will do the coding. It will write the algorithm. You just have to be intelligent questions. And the more data you feed it, the greater the level of accuracy, because the machine doesn't care whether it's 8 o'clock at night and it has to go home to its wife. The machine cares that it will just keep working and working and working. It has no limitations. It can continue to ingest as much data as you throw at it. And it will identify which variables are relevant, which variables are linear, which variables are non-linear, where there is correlation or where there is a causal relationship. You know, I used to always quote this example that on the day that Sachin Tendulkar hits 100, the Sensex goes up. Is this correlation or is this causal? Obviously, Sachin Tendulkar's batting has no impact on the stock exchange. But there is correlation between the two. The machine can understand what variables are dependent variables, what variables are independent variables, what variables are worth taking into consideration, what variables are not taking into consideration. I know that was a rather simplistic example, but it helps you understand the context of correlation versus a causal relationship. So this learning, this algorithm is a living learning thing. It will continue to develop on its own. It will write the code itself, and it will give you an outcome also. And it can surpass human creativity, and it can discover knowledge. It's important to understand this also, because you know, one traditionally thinks the machine ends here. It cannot think differently. But if a machine can beat a chess player who's the greatest chess player in the world, that means it has the ability to think creatively. It is doing something different, unanticipated, which was outside the textbooks. Because if it was operating inside the textbook, the human being would have won. But if the machine can beat the greatest chess players in the world, and not just once, but repeatedly beat them all the time, it means that it has creativity. It has the ability to invent, and it has the ability to discover knowledge, which means that, and I'll quote this example from chess, that, or let me take it from cricket because it might be a little more relatable. Nobody would have imagined a scoop shot 10 years ago, or no one would have imagined hitting a six over the wicketkeeper's head 10 years ago. All of these are inventions. A human mind can invent. Similarly, a machine can also invent. A machine can invent new scoring areas in the field by looking at data. And that's why, you know, cricket teams today have a data analyst. It can tell players what balls to leave outside the off stump. It can tell players what kind of shots they always get out at. It can tell players how to analyze the, and that is the creativity that artificial intelligence and machine learning possesses. Okay, let me come back to the non-sporting world. I keep going in that direction. The reality of artificial intelligence and machine learning today is, if you give the machines all the relevant data, as much data as possible, it can take any kind of decision. If you show it videos, a machine can learn to see. You know, one of the most amazing things that Facebook did about 3 years ago was tagging of photos. Can you imagine how difficult it is for a machine to look at a picture and say वो आदमी का face है, number one. अगर वो आदमी का face है, वो आदमी अर्जुन है. And a machine does that. There's no one sitting in the Facebook office who's looking at 5 million photos and saying, let me tag Arjun here. Those suggested tags that come in Facebook is because the machine is intelligent enough to look at images and able to identify that image looks like Arjun. And it's not an easy task. Can you imagine if the 150 people who are attending this session right now were all to write my name Arjun on their sheets of paper and write 100 next to it, how many different handwritings would come? And you feed all of those into the computer, and each time for the computer to say Arjun 100, Arjun 100, Arjun 100 takes immense amount of machine learning. And people have sat and trained machines to learn these things over the last 5 years. People have been doing this at Google. People have been doing this at Facebook. People have been doing this at Amazon. And that's why using video data now machines can see. Using books, they've been able to read. They've learned physics. They've learned DNA. You know, the entire domain, I told you about medicine earlier, the entire domain of medicine is going to change. The ability to read a human gene and then take decisions will change the way people fall ill. You can determine ways to cure diseases like diabetes and cancer before they happen, because based on a particular gene sequence, based on behavioral patterns, a machine will be able to predict who will fall ill and who will not fall ill, what diseases they can get, etc. That's the future of machine learning. I said it wasn't easy. These are the different mathematical models that operate behind the scenes. The good news is you don't need to know any of this. But it is important that you appreciate that whoever has done all this work has already done all this work and created machine learning for us. What happens as a result of this is we use those mathematical models to come to outcomes. And there are two types of machine learnings that exist. One is supervised, which work on chasing a known outcome. And the other is completely unsupervised, where you don't know what the outcome will be. And I'll spend a few minutes on this going forward. Supervised learning is basically categorized into two parts, regression and classification. And I will not bore you with the technical sides. Instead, I'll take an example of a loan application. So our problem right now is loan applications are coming to our desk. We have to decide based on a particular salary level of an individual whether a loan should be given or not. Our starting point is historical data. For these different salaries, these were the loans that were approved in the past. Okay, and I'm taking a very simple data set of only 8 lines and 2 columns right now. For these salary levels, these were the loans that were approved historically. If I were to plot these from, let's look at the graph on the left. This is how the traditional human mind would have worked. It would have plotted these graphs on a linear fit and said, at this threshold level, loans should be given. Above this threshold level, if you are above this line, give a loan. If you are below this line, don't give a loan. What the computer does is it says, hold on a minute, is linear fit the best way to approach this data? Let me plot the data and see what is the best regression model that is relevant for this data. It plots the data and says, hold on, for this salary data and this loan data, a better way of looking at it is to look at a polynomial fit. Based on my graph of polynomial fit, these loans should not be given. These are dicey loans. Very, very simple problem. 2 variables, 2 lines of code. Okay. This is the example of a supervised problem where an answer is provided that based on this data, what is the best line of it to minimize the prediction whether this loan will turn good or turn bad. Okay, this is a very, very simple way of looking at it. I'll move on. In reality, what you will have is you will have a lot of variables. You will have income, you will have job duration, you will have current debt levels, you will have loan amount, you will have the age of the individual, you will have education. So you will have multiple lines of input that will go in. And there will be some hidden work which will happen based on all those mathematical models that I showed you previously. And based on that, an output will be given. What is the risk factor of this loan? This is an example of supervised machine learning at work. Okay, I'll skip this slide and I'll come back to it in a minute. Now, this very same example that we took, where we looked at whether the loan should be given or not, was an example of a regression problem. In a classification problem, if I try and do it, I could turn around and say, I want an outcome whether it says is in future, if someone comes with these, should a loan be approved or not? So I will enter historical data saying at a salary of 10, loan is not approved. At a salary of 15, loan is not approved. At a salary of 25, loan is approved. And I draw a graph and I decide a decision boundary that these are my no's, these are my yeses, and this becomes a classification problem. The earlier one was a regression problem where I took a graph. The same thing, if I look at it from the perspective of artificial intelligence and machine learning, if I were to throw the same data at a machine, it would not look at it in such a and B perspective that we are looking at it now. It would look at a decision boundary which is not necessarily linear. It will not try and map everything onto one straight line and look at, yes and no outcomes purely based on straight lines. That's where the machine's ability to learn and think comes in. And it can turn around and say, yes, this person has a high salary level and his age is high, but his salary level is also high. So, which is why the loan should be considered, and so on and so forth. So these are just some examples of how machine learning really works. Now, that was just a rudimentary example, just looking at raw data of a very simple nature. When I turn it into a machine learning problem, I will have multiple variables. When you go to a loan officer seeking a loan, you people will know, some of you will work in this field. You will look at thousands of different variables. This is one such data set. The objective of this target is to decide, yes, loan to be given, yes or no. That is the objective that we are setting. That is the target. This is the label of the field, loan status, that we are looking at. These are the features: loan ID, gender, married, dependents, education. So basically different variables that are being taken into consideration. Now, the way the machine looks is that it picks up historical data and says, this is my training set. Based on this historical data, my training set, I will take a decision. This is my data of an outcome of the target set. So I'm going to go back a few slides to make sure that the concept is clear here. Remember this slide where I said we would enter past data and past results, and the machine would create its own algorithm based on that. That is what I'm doing in this current slide. I'm taking past data, which I call my training set. I have my outcome, the price, which is my past result. Based on this, an algorithm is defined. And then on my test set, my outcomes are derived. Are you getting what I'm saying? That is how the machine learns. And this is the technical side of it, the pure technical side. These are the number of lines of code that are required to complete this task. That's it. If you read about it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lines of code to generate this outcome. That is the progress that machine learning has made. And why is this possible? It's possible because there's a concept of directory files that are already created called model selection. This is already built in. Linear regression, already built in. Predictions, an outcome. That is the quality and that is the speed at which calculations will happen. So tomorrow, if you enter this data into this program, all your data, it will give you its result in less than 1 minute. Imagine processing 1 million loan applications in 1 minute flat. That is the power of machine learning. And that is where the future is headed today. I'll take some more examples. In finance, machine learning is already being used in portfolio management. This is an example of it. This is an artificial intelligence machine learning analytics screen of portfolio management, where it knows you are Mike, it tells you your total net worth, and it helps you build your retirement goals, your wealth goals. This is all artificial intelligence and machine learning at work already in the field of portfolio management. In stock trading, everything happens through artificial intelligence and machine learning. In fraud detection, the machine learns of customer behavior, it analyzes segregated data, it does an analysis of social graphs, it automates routine processes. I believe you've already had a workshop on RPA, robotic process automation, where automation of routine processes. I'm using it in my organization. You know, my organization used to have 200 distributed retail outlets. Every day, we used to have a guy, his name was Kapoor. His job was to download account statements of each of these 200 places and do accounts reco. We've built a robotic process automation tool which logs into a bank account and downloads a statement. It takes about 12 minutes to execute, and all those account statements are downloaded. They are then recategorized and resaved with their file name changed. It's all part of the robotic process automation. The file name is changed. They are uploaded into my ERP system, where each of those retail outlet sales and collection for the previous day gets fed in from the bank statement directly into my ERP system, and an accounts reco is done at the back end. Kapoor's job has got replaced by a robot's job. Kapoor is now doing a different job. But that's where artificial intelligence and machine learning is taking us. Routine processes which require no basic human intelligence can all be automated across an organization. But yeah, coming back to fraud detection, machine learning is already in use in fraud detection, especially in credit cards. You know, those phone calls you get when you do a transaction, it's an automated phone call. You've swiped your card more than 10,000 rupees on a particular day, you get an automated phone call. This is to confirm whether the transaction was done by you, yes or no. Please press 1 if it is you, press 2 if it is not you. And you know, so those processes are already built in for fraud detection. This is of course just a very rudimentary example. It goes a lot deeper than this. Loan assessment, I've already spoken to you about. In risk management, you know, determining value at risk is all completely being done by artificial intelligence and machine learning today. The potential is there, the ability is there, and the reason it's there is because all the data is there. The data is there, the computer speed is there, the processing ability is there. I mean, it would be foolish for companies not to use this to cut their costs and to potentially improve their returns. Again, I'm not saying that a human being will not be required. I'm saying the machine will give you all the information which then the human being can use to take a decision. But the basic work can all be done by a machine at a much, much faster pace. That's where we are right now. Advisory services, you know, you log into a bank, this entire process, this is all automated. All your chatbots, whether they're marketing chatbots or your financial advisory chatbots, all of these is all artificial intelligence and machine learning at work. You are living in an age where this is around you. And if you're not grasping it, you run the risk of being left behind. All of this is live and happening around you. Document analysis. You know, artificial intelligence is being used for this. Earlier on, all of this used to get done by individuals. There would be pre-processing, modeling, outcomes, risk assessment would be done, credit departments would work. Now it's all being done by programs. And the best part is, as I keep saying, the algorithm will write itself. You just have to keep feeding it the right amount of data. You give it your historical data, you give it your historical outcomes of that data, the algorithm will write itself. That's the future of machine learning. That's the future of finance. This is my last section where I'm going to take a few applications of machine learning in audit. I believe a large number of you are working in an audit capacity. So as a CFO, I go through the audit process on an annual basis. And these are some of the applications of machine learning that we see around us. And a large part of this is where the future is also headed. Now, my starting point of this is to go back to what I shared with you just right now. The amount of data available is huge. Traditionally, when auditing was done, it was done on a sample basis. An auditor would pick up a sample, it would run an algorithm in a machine which would tell what is the sample to be taken. But everything was done on a sample basis. The future of auditing is that samples will no longer exist. Because machines now have the power to process complete population data, the future of auditing is that not one sample will ever be left out while doing audits. So complete data will be used as a part of the analysis of your revenue, of your costs, of your customers. There will be no more sampling in the future. Everything will be based on the population. Number one. Number two, the ability to blow up financials into sectors and dive into every single aspect of it will now be available through advanced data analytics. Because you're looking at a population and not a sample, not one invoice will be left out. Not one PO will be left out. Not one receipt will be ignored. everything will be delved into deeper and deeper and deeper. So the quality of financial outcomes and the quality of the financials that are produced will be ridiculously better than what they were earlier. Number 3, the ability to identify anomalies or basically outliers, things that stand out. आपका business का trend usually ऐसा है, पर अचानक से यहाँ कोई spike आ गया. Why did that happen? Data will start throwing that out straight in the middle of an audit. In fact, it will throw it out right at the start of the audit. The exceptions will start getting analyzed deeper and deeper and deeper. There will be no room for companies to hide. There will be no room for people to hide. The ability to spot outliers against usual trends will be so visible. Just imagine, I run a 25-year-old company. If I were to enter 24 years of sales data into a machine, what kind of outcomes it could give me? It's just amazing. At the same time, it can also point out हाँ कहाँ गलतियां हुई हैं, or it will at least throw up areas where questions should be asked. So as an auditor, it could tell you these are the 5 areas that you should question the management more, because these are where I've observed anomalies. These are where exceptions are being noticed. The computer will perform the variance analysis. You don't need to, do variance analysis, send it to the accounts officer or to the accounts head and say variance analysis karke do. The machine will perform the variance analysis. It will tell you if the GP ratio is off, and it will tell you what are the 5 questions that you need to ask to the management to do your audit better.
Mr. Arjun, there is one question coming from one of the members for the audit, that so auditors will have to take full responsibility of the financials in the future with 100% transaction audit. This is the question. Would you like to answer in the context same?
Yeah, I've got a few more slides on audit, but I'm happy to take that question right now. Okay. See, at the end of the day, the responsibility is the financials always belong to the management. So the management will obviously have nowhere to hide. But yes, if the entire data is being audited of the population, then the auditors will also have to take complete responsibility of outcomes, because for them also all data is available. And in the long term, I see organizations and like ICAI and coming up with new guidelines, but that is the future. Right now, I think things are still the way they are, but that's where the future is headed, because we're no longer talking about sampling. The population will start getting covered in the future.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And the reason I'm saying this with so much certainty is that I've spoken to people in the Big Four, and people have already invested more than $1 billion in technology. Each of the Big Four firms have invested more than $1 billion in technology to improve the speed and quality of their audit processes. We've all read about audit disasters that have happened recently, and audit firms are taking no chances going forward. They're saying, if I'm going to have to take responsibility for the financials, I want to make sure that I have left no stone unturned, and that I have looked at everything with a magnifying glass, and the quality of when I say it is clear because I've seen and checked everything. And so the investments are being made in project management tools, in data analytics tools, in cloud storage, in communication platforms, and in risk assessment. And I'll explain why each of these are important. Project management tools will help ensure that there's no concept of emails anymore. There will be a complete dashboard where any member on both sides, whether it is the auditor or the company getting audited, can log in together, and all queries will be addressed on a common platform, and those responses are stored there for posterity, and that both parties have signed off on it. That is the quality of communication platforms that exist. The project management tools will tell you my audit is 21% towards completion. So and so has been assigned task 1. Status of completion of task 1 is X. Status of completion of task 2 is Y. Status of completion of task 3 is Z, and so on and so forth. Based on this, the tool will predict whether it will take 1 week to complete the audit, or 10 days to complete the audit, or 2 weeks to complete the audit at this pace, at this speed, etc. So, those tools exist. The data analytics I've already just touched upon, and I'll spend a little bit more time on it in my next slide. Then there's cloud storage. The concept of sending your financials through an Excel sheet, version 1, version 2, version 3, version 4, getting it checked by the auditor, then coming back, revised version going, all of that will be gone. All the financials will be stored on the cloud. All changes will happen live. Every change that happens in the financials will be trackable, so that tomorrow the person doing consolidation will not need to call up the auditor and check what was the change you made in note 64. The कौन से page में कौन से note में क्या change हुआ है. Everything will be stored on the cloud, and everything will have real-time access and real-time tracking and information of every change made. And there will be risk assessment tools already built into the auditing platform. This is an example of some of these. These are different analytics touch points in an audit. These are the risk assessments that will be done, the audit planning, the audit execution, and the audit reporting. Audit reports, instead of them being textual, they'll start becoming visual. They will have quantifiable, fact-based information, which is relevant both for the management and for the auditor. And I stress on the audit process because I strongly believe that the audit process is a partnership. And the objective of the audit of this partnership is to achieve the best and clearest and transparent set of financials for all stakeholders. And the auditors are critical stakeholders to the public to ensure that the financials are true and fair, and they represent what the reality on the ground is. And that is what the management should also always strive to provide as well, which is why this is the future of auditing. I'll spend 2 more minutes on this. I'll skip this slide, but this is just to show you this is what your audit reports will look like in 1 or 2 years. These are the auditing tools that will be available to you for execution. These have already been built by some of the big 4. They're already being used. These are the outcomes that I see as a result of it. I will come back to this slide in a minute. I'll first do the next slide, and then I'll come back to this slide. Artificial intelligence and machine learning will use a concept called fuzzy logic to scan every invoice, every entry going into your GLs. That is the quality of the audit we're talking about. It will look at a cutoff analysis to see at what date data is being posted, and it will prepare a posting calendar to validate that that process is happening in a correct manner. The algorithm will prepare a process map and check for the entire population whether the maker-checker concept has been followed in whole. It will do a correlation analysis that revenues, receivables, and cash are correctly correlated, that purchases, payables, and cash are correctly correlated, that inventory and cost of goods sold is correctly correlated. That is where AI/ML is taking auditing. And it will do salary profiling. It will look at master data. And the key here, and I can't stress this enough, I've said it enough times in my session already, everything comes down to one word, and that is data. And data is the new oil. It is the new currency of the world. And if the data is there, the machines are now capable enough to be able to analyze their data in a quick and responsive manner. And they're intelligent enough to develop all the algorithms on their own to take decisions. Just imagine, I'll go back to my healthcare example right at the start. It had 99% accuracy when it comes to people's lives, when taking decisions based on thousands of medical journals written over hundreds of years with the collective knowledge of millions of doctors all over the world. So for something which is that important and that much at risk, data for businesses is child's play. And so the better audit outcomes as a result of this exercise would be that any kind of patterns, any kinds of trends would now be visible to the auditors. In fact, the report will throw this information up to the auditor that these are the patterns and trends that exist. I keep repeating, you get a much, much fuller picture because everything will be based on population data. So risk assessment of customers, sales invoicing happening in a timely manner, settlement of invoices, assessment of quality of trade receivables, their aging, is it happening in a time, are correct write-offs being taken, is appropriate ECL being made, all of these decisions can be taken on the population data and all by the machine that is assisting the auditor, so that all of this doesn't have to be done manually by individuals. What this will result in is that there'll be a lot more confidence in the quality of financial reports. Because once such a thorough process is being followed on master data, on population data, the likelihood that anything can go wrong is minimized to such an extent that there will be a lot more confidence in the quality of work of auditors, and there'll be a lot more confidence in the outcomes of the financial reports that are generated of companies. Additionally, this will also throw up a lot more relevant feedback and insights for management, because there will be things that will come up in the audit, and as auditors and as accounts people, you will all know that there are so many times where we give feedback to the management on business because they've just not noticed a trend or they've just not seen a particular pattern. Tools like this will be able to give you so much more data that you can go back and tell management, hey, to look at these 3 things in your business. This is what the data is throwing up. And it will speed up the audit process considerably. Things that would traditionally take 7 days to do can now be done in 2 or 3 days. The amazing part of machine learning is that these algorithms that will be developed will continue to learn from auditors at all times. And then it can apply similar logic on other items. What I mean by this is any learning that has been developed for a particular industry then can be taken to other firms in that industry and to other firms in that sector. And it becomes a lot more easier to take decisions because all of that data is stored in one composite warehouse. So suppose you have one auditor who's auditing Infosys and another auditor who's auditing Wipro. Usually they will not be able to talk to each other. But here at the back end, the machine is learning. It's looking at all the data. It's reading all the audit reports of all the companies all over the world. It will say, these are the 500 audit reports I've read of IT companies. These are the 10 variables that you should look at. Then it will draw those 10 variables from the financials of the company that you are auditing. And it will tell you, these are the 4 or 5 high risk elements that I've noticed based on my analysis of 500 companies in this sector whose annual reports I've checked and whose audit process I've analyzed. And it will help you do your risk assessment at the transactional level, not at the macro level, but you can actually go down and then say, in invoice number 47, something looks wrong. That is the quality of outcomes that you will get. The caveat always is any output is based on input. So the quality of data that is fed into the system, that will determine the quality of data that you get out of the system. Which is why keeping historical records, and this is something that we as finance professionals are very, very good at, is absolutely key. So the quality of our input will determine the quality of our output. And the one caveat here is, and this is where I'll come back to what Dayanivas ji said right at the start, is that human bias can come in here. And that is the one major risk when it comes to all these processes. If the reliability of the outcome is based on the quality of the input, and it is a human being who decides what is being inputted, then it is the ethical behavior which will determine the quality of the entire audit process, as it does today, of course. So this is one thing that will not change, but hopefully the idea is that, you know, both the company and the public, the shareholders benefit at large. So the audit process should improve considerably. I've taken an example of a restaurant business. Today, McDonald's is using artificial intelligence to design its menus and its offerings, like whether it clubs a coffee with or a tea with a burger, which burger to club with which French fry and what Coke. All its menus, all artificial intelligence goes into, would you like to add this to your burger offering, or would you like to add this to your fries? You know, when they suggest things, it's all based on artificial intelligence. Or where they start a new store, the artificial intelligence, machine learning works on population data of the store, competition that exists, sales of other organizations in the area, propensity to do business, identify site locations, etc., etc. So if you tomorrow as an auditor were to pick up the McDonald's business, let's say, to audit, just imagine the quantum of data that would exist. You feed all that data into your artificial intelligence and machine learning platform, it will throw up its algorithm, and based on the historic trends, it will find anomalies. It will detect unusual sales patterns. It will tell you, check out employee number 43 at your Muscat location. There's an unusual sales behavior that has been detected. It will tell you, go to the restaurant on MG Road in New Delhi. That is the one you should be auditing. It will do this while analyzing impact of other variables. So if it detects an unusual sales pattern on a particular day, like let's say sales were less on a particular weekend, and typically in a restaurant business, weekend sales spike. It will look at combinations, like was the weather bad that day? So maybe it should not be looked at. Or it will say, was there a festival and was there a lack of parking available? So maybe that day sales were less. It will take all of this additional data into consideration if you give it the data to look at as the human being. So, you know, quality of input, quality of output. I've covered these more or less, but ultimately the objective of all of this is that it gives you benefits, like it makes it easier to track fraud, or if there's collusion or deception. It improves your risk assessment. It tells you where to focus your time and energy as an auditor. Please understand, it's not replacing you, but it's giving you better quality information for you to be able to take your decisions on areas which are high risk, rather than you're wasting time studying so much data and preparing so many reports. It will help you focus your areas on what matters. And so hence it will speed up things considerably, and it will throw up, and it's not just useful for you. your clients will also appreciate this. If you're an internal auditor for a company, the company will appreciate this. If you're the IFC, ITGC in charge for a company, your company will appreciate this, because it will throw up relevant information that you can use to take business decisions. Because the idea is not in an audit to find fault. The idea is to work as a partner to make sure that the financials represent what is the reality of the company. That was my last slide. I just want to close by saying the future is not tomorrow. Artificial intelligence and machine learning are not things of the future. They are things of the present. They are already in use. They're throwing up 2.5 million exabytes of data a day. All this data is there to analyze, and it's amazing what kind of world we're going to move into over the next 12 to 24 months. And the one thing about COVID is it has only accelerated the digital transformation. It has not slowed it down. We have all moved to a more virtual way of working. The whole world has moved to some number of people working from home. These digital tools that were going to be used in 2022 and 2023, you can't wait for that now. They are all going to come in the next 3 to 6 months. If you're not already using them, some of you will be. The future is not tomorrow. The future is now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There are a few questions coming up from the members. Would you like to take 5 minutes, some questions, sir?
Absolutely. I'll be happy to take questions.
I'm sharing my screen, sir.
Yeah, I'll just stop share mine. I hope the talk was useful. And
we have got lots of comment from the members that they appreciate your efforts, and definitely they were looking for. One of the questions is the same. Can we have the presentation?
Sure, I'll have it sent across, of course.
Okay, this is coming from the question. The presentation will be shared with everybody. Okay, sir, there are 10 questions are with me. I'm quickly taking these questions on the screen. Can you see my screen, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. How do we track AI as a means of ROI with potential sponsors, brand, and company? It is a quick answer.
The screen I'm seeing in the context of sporting industry. Sport marketers have been using AI.
Yeah, Mr. Arjun, it's a second bullet point.
Yeah, I'll just take it up. Just give me a second. I'll just drink some more.
Skip it. It's not, if it is not a quick answer, let's keep it, because we are running out of time. Okay. If current data is say slightly different from the past data, how would MI will adjust accordingly?
It's highly intelligent. But as I said, the quality of data that you enter will determine the quality of data that you get as an output. But if the current data is different, of course it will adjust, because it's an intelligent system. It's got the ability to take into account other variables. Like I shared, it takes into account weather. It takes into account in a restaurant, in auditing a restaurant business, it takes into account what the weather was on that day. If it's raining on a Saturday, there will be less sales. It takes into account that if it is a holiday, there will be less parking facility available outside the restaurant. So that could affect footfalls. So the quality of data, the more data you throw at it, the better the outcome will be.
Okay,
and if the current data, just to conclude, so if the current data is different from the past data, that's okay. It is still, as long as the data is accurate, the system will be intelligent enough to develop it.
Third question is, artificial intelligence should evaluate its effect on the social impact, and whether one should proceed with it to the maximum to social welfare to the humankind. It will be better if it can predict the sustainability aspect also.
Absolutely, and one of the reasons why I did not just focus on the applicability of artificial intelligence in finance was to ensure that, we realize that it's a part of our lives now. It is there not just in social media apps and like Facebook and LinkedIn, but it is also there in healthcare. It is also there in politics. It is there in every single domain that you see in the human life cycle. It is there in it's there in your genes. It is there in your decision making. It is there in your thought process. So it will exist going forward.
Sir, Vasant Kumar Jugaji from Bangkok chapter has asked that what is the expected useful life of AI or ML if we capitalize the cost by considering its endurable benefits?
The simple answer to this question is it depends. Because you will not be measuring the useful life of AI or ML. You will be measuring the useful life of the tool that you have developed which uses AI or ML. And so, for example, in my company, we've developed an AI ML business predictor tool. So the useful life of that tool is the way we derive it is the way we derive the useful life of any software project. There will always be phase one of implementation, which will have a budget and it will have a defined period during which it will be CWIP, and after that capitalization will start. Similarly, when we move to phase two of that development cycle, where you do upgrades and AI ML is an area where there are continuous upgrades, then you will start the CWIP process of phase two, and then you will begin capitalizing that. So ultimately, it depends on the utility of how long you intend to use phase one, how long you intend to use phase two.
Perfect, sir.
So think of it as a software project, not as an AI/ML AI/ML.
One of the good laughing question: does it mean that no need to diagnosis by the doctors?
Oh, well, one can hope that one will never need to visit a doctor in life. That is always the prayer. An apple a day keeps the doctor away.
Okay. The last question: polynomial fit. Can kindly describe it in more detail?
This would take time, and I'm not sure of how much interest it would be to everyone. So
since you already answered, sir, will management will be willing to force or give the complete data to audit for this data analyst? 100%.
They will have no option but to.
There is no option. Okay, perfect. The last. Can you suggest some good course for doing the AI and RPA courses?
Sure. I can suggest more than one actually. There's Udemy, which has an excellent course. So there are a few brilliant teachers of this subject. One of them's name is Andrew NG. Okay, if you could just Google Andrew NG online, he has a course on Coursera. He's an expert in machine learning. His courses are excellent. Andrew, and just the letters N and G. Then there's another excellent teacher called Kirill Eremenko. I'll just type the name in the chat box so that everyone can access it. So there are courses by Kirill Eremenko and Andrew NG. These courses are available on multiple platforms like Udemy, Coursera, etc. Do I have the rights to send to everyone? I don't. Wait, all panelists and attendees, yes. So I've typed out two names, Kirill Eremenko and Andrew NG. Both of them have excellent courses on artificial intelligence and machine learning. They would be a good place to start. However, my suggestion is, as a CA, whether you want to become a technical expert is ultimately your decision. If it interests you, definitely go ahead. But as a CA, what is important is the appreciation of the topic and its application, rather than necessarily the technical side of it. I showed you the technical side of it because I wanted to give you an exposure to it. Do you need more in-depth exposure to the technical side? I leave it to you, to your level of interest and how much you want to see it growing in your job. What you should focus more on is on the practical side. which is the application of it in your specific line of work and in your specific industry, and upskill yourself in terms of how you will apply this in your organization. And that is where it will be more useful for you rather than learning the technical side of it.
Perfect, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Now
pleasure.
it's time to conclude the session. Thank you very much, sir. We have got lots of appreciation for you. So now I request our Davis Kalukaranji, our founder chairman, and Mr. Noel Cherian, who is the past chairman from Kuwait chapter, to formally present a e-certificate to Mr. Arjun. Mr. Davis, are you there? Can you unmute yourself, Mr. Noel? Can you unmute Mr. Davis, Mr. Noel? Mr. Noel? Yeah, perfect. I'm sharing the screen with the.
Hello.
Hello, Mr.
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
Reviji, can you hear me?
Yes,
sir,
yes, Davis ji. Yes.
Yeah. Good morning, Arjunji. It was a great presentation. We really enjoyed, and it gives me also a pleasure to extend a warm greetings on our Onam celebrations. Okay, this is. I wish you all a happy Onam, and Arjunji, it's a great honor to be. Yeah. To be joining you this morning, and your information was really informative, and I'm hopeful that all the members will make use of what you have said. It was good practical suggestions also, and thank you, Ji.
Thank you so much, sir. You humbled me. Thank you so much for your appreciation.
Mr. Noel, can you say something?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Arjun ji, it was a very valuable presentation, and we've got a lot of insights. Like you mentioned, data is the new oil, and of course, this is the real output we'll receive, or the real outcome we'll receive once we apply this in our area of business. So thank you once again for this presentation. It was very useful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me and having me over. Once again, my congratulations to the Kuwait chapter on their exciting new journey. Many thanks to the Muscat chapter and Amananti yesterday for sending me those useful little nuggets of information so that I could gain some insight into the audience. And a very special thanks to Ravi ji for coordinating everything from start to finish. It is such an honor for me to share the dais with eminent professionals like Dayan Avasti, and of course, under the tutelage of the great Professor Sundarajan.
Arjun ji, we have with us, CA Mubin Khan, our past chairperson. I would like to have, he's also our regulator here in Oman. Okay.
Yeah.
Mubin Bhai.
Mubin Bhai, can you say some few words, sir? Mubin Bhai.
Awad Kishore ji.
Awad Kishore ji, if you want to say something.
It was a brilliant, what should I say? It was a brilliant presentation, Arjun, and I think all of us have benefited, and a whole lot of members will benefit, and it will be a new approach. As you said, most of us knew that it is there in parts and parcels all over the place, but you put it in a very comprehensive and a manner that it is structured in our minds now. So congratulations. I think it is one of the most useful presentations in recent times.
Thank you so much, sir, for your kind words.
Thank you very much, Awad Kishore ji. He is our past chairperson, Muscat chapter.
It was a good presentation. Yeah, I agree with Awad ji.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you very much, Mubin ji.
Now I request CA Tisha Dalmia from Kuwait chapter to formally have a vote of thanks. Roy ji, perfect?
Yes, yes. Ravi. Risha, are you there?
Good afternoon, all. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Sundarajan for giving his time and being on the panel. Then following, I would like to thank CA Dayanivas Sharma for opening the session and giving us a brief intro on the AI and the data analytics part. Then we couldn't be thanking Mr. Arjun more than enough for spending his time and the valuable inputs he shared. As a young fellow chartered accountant, what I could see is when we meet such people here as on the dais and the panel, we just realize that how our profession and institute lies at the bottom of their heart. And we just feel more proud and more respected to be associated with such an association. And we just want to carry forward the same torch to the younger generations coming in. I would like to say, Arjun sir, for your presentation, that you explained AI in the most simplistic way with the most relatable real life examples, which I think anybody who has heard of AI or not heard, but they can totally relate to it and totally understand it. So really, really very thankful for spending the time and being as an audience. It's a privilege to have attended this session and gained the overall insights for that. Further, we would just like to thank all the members for giving in their time and attending this session. And I'm sure you would all have a takeaway from this. Then we would like to thank Oman chapter and Kezer for collaborating and arranging for this wonderful session. And we would be hopeful that we can have more such collaborative sessions in future and bring in such wonderful speakers together and gain the knowledge. So on that note, I would like to say thank you all. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Arjun ji. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you so much very much, everyone.
Kaiser bhai.
Can we have a group photo?
Yeah. Okay. Please, Mubin ji, stay on.
Can you make it a gallery view?
Yeah, it's already a gallery view.
It's a gallery view.
You can make it, no problem, but I'm thinking.
I'm just minimizing it. Now it's there. So, Isha, can you switch on your... Isha, can you switch on your... Yeah, perfect. So, simple view is there. Now I will take photo. Print screen. Smile. Okay. One more click.
Thank you, Rohit ji. Thank you, Trisha ji. Thank you, Mubin bhai. Thank you, Kaiser bhai.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful presentation, Arjun. Wonderful presentation.
Thank you, Professor.
Arjun.
Thank you, Ravi ji. Thank you, Awad ji.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Manish bhai.